The Wizard of Oz was determined to statistically be the single most viewed film that has ever been created in the entire history of this planet's existence. Wow. The Wizard of Oz follows Dorothy, a young girl played by a blatantly older 16-year-old Judy Garland with her tits taped down to look younger, who is pretty much an emo who hates her life because some old bitch wants to dognap her little mutt Toto, so she runs away from home until she's attacked by Hurricane Sandy and flies off to a wonderful land called Oz, where she performs first-class murder on a witch. She's then approached by a good witch who informs her that there's no way home other than the Wizard of Oz granting her that wish. The aforementioned dead witch's sister then shows up and promises revenge, just as Dorothy then performs first-class theft and steals some magical ruby slippers. The evil witch then vanishes, promising to return as Dorothy heads off to find the wizard, bumping in a Dick Van Dyke's dad here, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and a really annoying Cowardly Lion.
Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking.
We get the classical songs we all know and love as the extra characters seek out a brain, a heart, and some courage from the wizard, as well as sending Dorothy home. They follow up with the second murder, now making Dorothy an official serial killer before getting their wishes granted. Kind of. And Dorothy returning home only to find out that it was all a dream. How come this is the only movie that gets away with that ending? Any other film does that cop-out ending, it was just a dream, and people rip it to shreds. Okay, the sequel proved it wasn't a dream, but that was decades later.
Why didn't you say that in the first place?
The original ending was to actually have the camera pan down to show that Dorothy was still wearing the ruby slippers to prove that it was all real. However, it was cut out thinking the audience would be too sophisticated to have such a hammered in-your-face ending and kept it subtle and left to your interpretation. I always find it weird though that she wakes up and no one seems to remember or care that the old bitch is still coming back to steal her dog.
For 23 years I've been dying to tell you what I thought of you. And now, well, being a Christian woman, I can't say it.
Cunt. She thinks you're a cunt.
Yes.
The movie was based on the L. Frank Baum novel released in the year 1900 and became an incredible success. In 1898, Frank's wife Maud became an aunt to a girl called Dorothy, but she unfortunately passed away just 5 months later. Coming up to finishing his Oz novel, he decided to honor his wife's family by naming his protagonist the exact same name and even giving her the surname of Gale, his wife's maiden name almost identical as Gage. The real Dorothy's grave was actually forgotten about for almost an entire century until 1996 when it was finally rediscovered. Mickey Carroll, one of the only munchkins from the film still alive, learned about it. He replaced her grave with a monument, and the real Dorothy even has her own memorial garden.
Well, that makes a difference.
Development of the film itself, however, began when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Does it bother nobody else that they misspelled that title? The plural of dwarf is dwarves. Oh, well, fuck you.
It's all right now.
When Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs proved that feature-length adaptations of children's stories or fairy tales can actually work. Speaking of which, Snow White was, at the time, the most successful movie ever made, and therefore the screenwriters wanted to surpass it. And, you know, the shitty adaptations that came before it and failed, like my Viagra last night with your mum.
That's true.
In January 1938, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer purchased the rights to the book, but the script itself went through dozens of rewrites. Many writers simultaneously worked on the script on their own, unknowing that others were doing the same, but this was actually quite common practice at the time. In total, the movie was technically written by William H. Cannon, Herman J. Mankiewicz, Noel Langley, Ogden Nash, Harold Arian, Yip Harburg, Florence Ryerson, Edgar Allan Wolfe, Victor Fleming, John Lee Martin, Jack Haley, Burt Lahr, Irving Brecker, Herbert Fields, Arthur Freed, Samuel Hoffenstein, Jack Mint, Sid Silvers, Richard Thorpe, George Cukor, and King Vidor. Judy Garland was quickly selected to play Dorothy, but producer Mervyn Leroy tried his best to get Shirley Temple, who was at the time the biggest child actor around. The producers heard her singing voice and felt like they needed a different style. Deanne Durbin was also considered and had far more acting experience than Garland, and Betty James was also a possibility. Ray Bolger was cast as the Tin Man and Buddy Ebsen as the Scarecrow. Not that one. Bolger wasn't happy with this, however, as he looked up to Fred Stone, who portrayed a Scarecrow performance on stage in 1902, and he wanted to copy his idol. Weirdly, Stone himself actually showed interest in reprising his role for the big screen, and he was actually considered, but then turned down, believing that at age 65, he wouldn't have been as mobile or energetic enough for the part. Ray Bolger did manage to convince Leroy to recast him, and Bolger and Ebsen basically ended up switching roles as the Tin Man and Scarecrow. Ed Wynn was considered for the part of the Wizard. Not that one. But he turned it down as the role was too small for such an incredible actor. The studio ran out of patience negotiating his salary and cast Frank Morgan. W.C. Fields was also another consideration. Fanny Bryce was considered for the part of the Good Witch, as was Beatrice Lilly, but it ended up going to Billy Burke. Gail Sondergaard was originally cast as the Wicked Witch, but soon became unhappy with how horrible she was perceived. Didn't the title of The Wicked Witch kind of give the game away? This was because the character was originally going to be quite sexy. Their words, not mine.
Very good, but very mysterious.
Before they realised that made about as much sense as Lil Wayne continuing his music career and changed it to the evil cow we all love to hate. In fact, Margaret Hamilton was actually so good at the job, her scenes were often cut down because she was far too scary for child audiences. However, Judy Garland came right out and said that she found it damn near impossible to be afraid of Margaret Hamilton because off-set she was one of the nicest women you could ever meet. Just 10 days into filming, and Buddy Ebsen suffered a negative reaction to the aluminium makeup he wore as the Tin Man. Breathing it in daily ended up causing some serious damage to his lungs, and he ended up in critical condition in hospital, forcing him to leave the project altogether. No full footage of him as the Tin Man was ever released, but there were some photographs during filming and test pictures of different makeups used. Jack Haley, who took over the role, just naturally assumed that he had been fired. Over the years, Jack Haley has admitted, "People always tell me it must have been fun making The Wizard of Oz. It was not fun. Like hell it was fun. It was a lot of hard work. It was not fun at all." But I guess he should consider himself lucky though. Buddy Ebsen revealed on the Jerry Springer Show many years later that the Tin Man suit almost caused him to cut off his testicles.
This is terrible.
Filming was tedious, most of the actors working 6 days a week and as early as 4 and 5 in the morning, not leaving the set until 7 or 8 at night. In addition, the strenuous costumes and makeup sessions caused constant stress. On the set, they would be heated by the studio lights to reach temperatures to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Burt Lahr, who played the Cowardly Lion, had it the worst. It was the heaviest and hottest of all the outfits, and it would be drenched in sweat by the end of the shoot. Crew members were needed to wash it all night, and they confessed that it absolutely reeked. They also learned very quickly the difficulty of working with animals, taking many takes for Toto the dog to follow direction. Awkward little shit. Amazingly, producer Mervyn Leroy actually considered having a human man play Toto. Yeah, that's an idea, mate. That would have been good. The studio also struggled to find many little people to play the Munchkins, and they were each paid over $50 a week, whereas Toto received $125. They were actually a performing group literally called the Singer Midgets. So it's only offensive when I say midgets, right? Filming proved very difficult though, as many of them couldn't sing, and the only ones who could actually speak English are the ones who gave Dorothy flowers. Although, is there any excuses for these nail-on-a-chalkboard voices? On June 22nd, 1969, Judy Garland sadly passed away at the age of just 47. On that exact same day, Kansas was disrupted by a tornado. Damn. Filming itself never got any easier, as Margaret Hamilton was severely burned during her very first scene. A hidden elevator was supposed to take her down out of shot to portray her dramatic exit. She claimed it would either go down slowly or really quickly. The first take went fine, but the second one, the timing was inaccurate and she was exposed to the flames. Her makeup caught fire and she was rushed off for medical care. She spent 6 weeks in hospital before returning to filming. Judy Garland seemed to have a lot of fun making the picture, but she did have a conflict with director Victor Fleming, who, by her own admission, she actually had a huge crush on at the time. There's a scene where Dorothy slaps the Cowardly Lion, but Judy kept cracking up laughing take after take after take. Fleming got so frustrated he actually slapped the 16-year-old actress in the face. She then returned to the set and nailed the scene in one take, though you can still see her kind of holding back laughter. Fleming was so ashamed of himself, he confided in crew members about how bad he felt for doing so, which Garland overheard. She reassured him that there was no hard feelings and she was fine with what he did before giving him a kiss on the nose for good measure. The movie was originally 2 hours long but needed to be trimmed down. The general runtime of a film back then was an hour and a half, so a few scenes were snipped shorter or cut out altogether. Some of which leave many lines of dialogue in the final film confusing and nonsensical, since they're referring to a sequence that no longer exists.
I've set a little insect on ahead to take the bite out of them.
The famous Over the Rainbow sequence was also originally cut out, as the studio thought it made the Kansas scene too long and would bore the children viewers. They also found it to be too degrading for Judy Garland to sing in a barnyard. Hey, if it's good enough for Jesus! Victor Fleming fought to keep it in and they won, eventually leading to the song winning an Academy Award, and in 2004 would even be ranked #1 by the AFI for the best movie song of all time. Other content that was deleted involved a love story blossoming between Dorothy and Scarecrow. How old she's supposed to be? I'm not even joking. That's what this line refers to.
I think I'll miss you most of all.
Okay, please? It's quite ironic because Judy Garland's real-life daughter would actually end up marrying Jack Haley's real-life son in 1974. An even earlier version of the script even showed Aunt Eminem wanting to murder Toto to punish Dorothy. Bye-bye, childhood. Bye-bye. Yeah, you just go down there. In a genius method of marketing, none of the Kansas scenes were shown in any of the trailers, only the Oz scenes. The beautiful Technicolor landscapes were very new and inventive back then, so the trailers led audiences to believe the entire movie was done that way. The Wizard of Oz actually made a huge impact in the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. The movie is highly perceived as a metaphor for coming out of the closet. I can actually see it. It actually does make a lot of sense. Think about it. Dorothy is ridiculed by her family, leading to her running away from home in shame. She then ends up in a very homoerotic and camp landscape, meeting up with many bizarre camp characters in dodgy costumes, where she feels more at home, more comfortable, and she can finally be herself. I can't unsee it now. And if you really want to go the extra mile, the evil witch is an uptight conservative woman who bends the law to get her own way. Just stay down there, childhood. Don't even bother trying. Premiere put it on their list for the 20 most overrated movies of all time, and even Judy Garland herself was disappointed with the film upon release due to the poor commercial success. The original book was actually a lot darker than the first movie, even having the Tin Man decapitate people with his axe. Oh, and the slippers were originally silver. Oh, that's it. Film sucks. It didn't follow the book. I mean, to its credit, the film was quite dark in the sense that Scarecrow is holding a fucking revolver. A Wizard of Oz character is packing heat. He's holding a goddamn gun. Stay down there. I love this movie. The songs are memorable and we still sing them to this day, from Yellow Brick Road to Over the Rainbow to Ding Dong, My Wife is Dead, Off to See the Wizard, If Only I Had a Heart, If Only I Had a Brain, If Only We Had Bugs Life Too. We've all sang them and it's such an impressive piece for its time. This was 1939. This movie was created when my father was a sperm in my grandfather's nutsack, and it looks more real and magical than some films nowadays. The movie, not my grandfather's nutsack. The sets are gorgeous, the landscape is beautiful to look at, the music is enchanting, and the characters are likeable, but I do feel like because of people's love for the film, they turn a blind eye to its problems. For instance, the acting. Hear me out! Right here, Judy Garland is amazing, but this is at the 78-minute mark. She's not unbearable throughout, but she does have some really bad reads, as do the other cast members.
I have so got brains. What's she doing now? We've got to get away.
Don't you think the wizard could help him, too?
I can't run anymore. That's our farm.
I'd turn back if I were you. Why? Don't you see? He's come to take us to Dorothy.
All of this build-up, this intense tornado scene, this absolutely fantastic sequence, and after all of this... Oh. Brilliant.
Do you think if I went with you, this wizard would give me some brains? Do you think if I went with you, this wizard would give me some brains?
How the hell did they not see the witch here? She is easier to see than the irate gamer's boner for James Rolfe. Allow me to ruin this scene for you.
Oh, oil my arms, please. Oil my elbows.
Did that hurt?
No, it feels wonderful.
The Lion's second solo is entirely pointless. No, like, they literally needed to kill time, so I guess it does have a point, but it does absolutely nothing to add to the plot whatsoever. The Tin Man here legit looks absolutely petrifying. Imagine this guy coming after you. Forget Michael Myers, this is the true horror movie villain.
Oh, hurry, please, hurry. The hourglass is almost empty.
But they don't know about the hourglass, so it was completely pointless telling them that. Why would the witch even have her own weakness inside her castle? It makes no sense. There's a nice crew member's hand here as well, pouring the water on her. What a nice guy.
You've always had the power to go back to Kansas.
I have.
Then why didn't you tell her before?
Because she wouldn't have believed me.
Yes, she would. It would have taken 2 seconds to test it, and oh, she's back home. There's literally no reason why she couldn't have just told her that from the start. She would have avoided a life-endangering experience, traumatizing her for life.
What makes the Sphinx the seventh wonder? Courage.
So he knows what the seventh wonder of the world is, but he doesn't know where Kansas is. Also, the seventh wonder of the world is not the Sphinx, it's actually the Great Pyramid.